In this episode of The Lucy Show, Lucy, once again portrayed by Lucille Ball, finds herself caught in yet another situation where her ambition to prove her capability completely overrides her common sense. As the story kicks off with Lucy stumbling into an opportunity that seems small at first, but quickly grows into something she believes could finally elevate her status in the eyes of those around her, particularly Mr. Mooney, whose approval she constantly chases despite repeatedly sabotaging her own chances. And from the very beginning, Lucy approaches the situation with an almost exaggerated level of confidence, speaking as if she already has everything under control, even though it's clear she barely understands the task she has taken on. And that contrast between confidence and reality immediately sets the tone for what's to come as Lucy begins organizing, planning, and inserting herself into responsibilities that might have been manageable if she had just kept things simple. But of course, simplicity is not in Lucy's nature, and instead she starts adding unnecessary complications, trying to make everything more impressive than it needs to be, convinced that going above and beyond will earn her recognition, while in reality it only increases the chances of something going horribly wrong. And as she moves forward, the first signs of trouble appear in subtle ways. Small mistakes that she either ignores or tries to fix in overly complicated ways, creating a domino effect that slowly builds tension. And the audience can clearly see where this is heading, even if Lucy cannot, which makes every decision she makes both hilarious and slightly painful to watch, because you know it's going to backfire. And yet, you can't look away, and as the episode progresses, Lucy's situation becomes more entangled when other characters get involved, each bringing their own expectations and misunderstandings into the mix, which only adds to the confusion, and Lucy, instead of clarifying anything, chooses to keep up appearances, pretending that everything is going exactly as planned, even when it's obviously not, leading to a series of interactions where she has to constantly improvise, switching between roles, stories, and excuses in order to maintain the illusion of competence, and this constant juggling act becomes increasingly unsustainable, as each lie or adjustment creates new problems that she has to deal with on the fly, and the pacing of the episode reflects this escalation, moving from relatively calm scenes into faster, more chaotic sequences where Lucy is literally running from one problem to another, trying to stay ahead of the consequences of her own actions. And throughout all of this, there is a strong element of physical comedy, with Lucy getting herself into situations that require exaggerated movements, quick thinking, and often ridiculous solutions. Whether it's hiding something, retrieving something, or simply trying to avoid being caught in the middle of her own mess. And these moments highlight not only her comedic timing, but also her ability to fully commit to the absurdity of the situation, making even the most chaotic scenes feel intentional and entertaining rather than random. And as the tension builds toward the climax, the stakes become higher, with an important moment approaching where everything Lucy has been trying to manage will be put to the test. And it becomes clear that there is no way she can keep all the pieces together, yet she continues to push forward, convinced that she can somehow pull it off at the last second. And this leads to a sequence where everything begins to unravel simultaneously. Misunderstandings collide, carefully placed elements fall apart, and Lucy is left scrambling to hold on to any sense of control. But the more she tries to fix things, the worse they get, creating a chain reaction of comedic disasters that peak in a moment of complete chaos, where the truth can no longer be hidden and everything is exposed in the most dramatic and humorous way possible. And Lucy is forced to face the consequences of her actions, standing at the center of the mess she created. And while there is a brief moment where it seems like she might finally learn her lesson, that realization is quickly softened by the comedic tone of the show as the other characters react in ways that are more amused than angry, reinforcing the idea that this is just part of Lucy's nature. And rather than being defined by her failures, she simply absorbs the experience and moves on, ready to jump into the next situation with the same level of enthusiasm and lack of caution. And the resolution brings everything back to a sense of normalcy, with relationships intact and the chaos neatly contained within the episode, leaving the audience with a satisfying conclusion that ties together the various threads of the story while still maintaining the lighthearted spirit that defines the show. And as the final moments play out, there is a sense that nothing has really changed. And yet, everything has been entertaining enough to make that lack of change feel like a strength rather than a weakness. Because the real appeal lies in watching Lucy navigate these increasingly ridiculous situations with unwavering confidence, turning ordinary circumstances into elaborate comedic set pieces that rely on timing, character interaction, and her unique ability to escalate even the smallest problem into something unforgettable. And by the time the episode ends, the audience is left with that familiar mix of amusement and anticipation, knowing that Lucy will continue to chase opportunities, overestimate her abilities, and create chaos in the process. And honestly, that cycle is exactly what makes the show work so well, because it allows each episode to explore new variations of the same core dynamic while still feeling fresh and engaging. And this particular episode stands as another strong example of how far Lucy can push a situation before it collapses under its own weight, delivering a story that is both predictably chaotic and endlessly entertaining at the same time, proving once again that when Lucy is involved, nothing will ever go according to plan, and that's exactly why you keep watching. And even after everything seems to have settled, the episode refuses to completely wind down in a quiet or predictable way because Lucy, still played with unstoppable energy by Lucille Ball, cannot resist making one last attempt to regain some sense of control over how others perceive her, which leads into a final stretch of events that feels like a bonus round of chaos layered on top of everything that has already happened, as she convinces herself that if she can just fix one small detail, smooth over one misunderstanding, or present the situation in a slightly better light, she might still walk away looking competent instead of completely overwhelmed. But as always, her definition of fixing things involves adding new complications rather than simplifying anything. And so she dives right back into the mess with the same confidence that got her into trouble in the first place, retracing her steps, revisiting earlier problems, and unintentionally reopening issues that had just barely been resolved, which creates a sense that the chaos is looping back on itself, growing in intensity even as it approaches the conclusion. And the humor in this section comes from the sheer persistence of Lucy's mindset, because no matter how much evidence she has that things are out of control, she continues to act as if she is only one clever move away from turning everything into a success. And this stubborn optimism becomes both the driving force of the comedy and the reason why the situation keeps spiraling, as she begins interacting with the other characters again, trying to reshape their impressions, but instead triggering new misunderstandings that layer over the old ones, creating a tangled web of confusion where no one is entirely sure what is going on anymore, including Lucy herself, and yet she keeps going, improvising explanations, changing her story mid-sentence, and physically moving from one place to another in an attempt to stay ahead of the consequences, which leads to a series of rapid-fire moments that blend dialogue-based humor with physical comedy as she hides objects, retrieves them again, narrowly avoids being caught in contradictions, and occasionally gets trapped in situations that require increasingly ridiculous escapes, all while maintaining that signature expression of determination that suggests she still believes everything is salvageable. And this extended sequence highlights one of the core strengths of The Lucy Show, which is its ability to stretch a single comedic premise far beyond what seems reasonable without losing momentum, because each new complication feels like a natural extension of Lucy's previous choices, creating a chain reaction that builds rather than stalls. And as the episode moves closer to its true ending, the various threads begin to collide once more, bringing together all the misunderstandings, misplaced items, and mistaken assumptions into one final convergence point where everything has to be resolved at once. And of course, this resolution does not come in a neat or orderly fashion, but rather in a burst of chaotic clarity where the truth emerges in the most inconvenient and comedic way possible, exposing Lucy's actions while also revealing how each small mistake contributed to the larger disaster. And in that moment, there is a brief pause, a kind of comedic stillness where the weight of everything hangs in the air, giving Lucy just enough time to realize how far things have spiraled. And for a split second, it looks like she might actually acknowledge the full extent of her role in the chaos, but true to form, she quickly pivots, either downplaying the situation or reframing it in a way that allows her to maintain some sense of dignity, which adds one final layer of humor because it shows that while she may recognize what happened, she is not about to let it define her completely. And the other characters, who have now come to expect this pattern, respond with a mix of exasperation and amusement, reinforcing the idea that Lucy's behavior, while disruptive, is also strangely endearing. And as everything settles into its final state, the episode returns to a sense of normalcy, with the chaos neatly contained within the boundaries of the story, leaving no lasting damage beyond the memory of what just occurred. And this reset is an important part of the show's rhythm, because it allows each episode to stand on its own while still maintaining continuity in the characters' relationships and personalities. And by the time the closing moments arrive, there is a feeling of completion, not because Lucy has fundamentally changed, but because the journey from confidence to chaos and back again has played out in a satisfying way, delivering the kind of comedic payoff that defines the series. And as Lucy moves forward, seemingly ready to take on whatever comes next with the same fearless attitude, the audience is left with the understanding that this cycle will continue, that no matter how many times things go wrong, she will always approach the next situation with fresh enthusiasm. And that predictability, ironically, is what makes the show feel so consistently entertaining, because it provides a reliable framework for endless variations of comedic disaster. And this extended ending reinforces that idea by showing that even when the main conflict is resolved, Lucy's instinct to push just a little further, to try just one more thing, is what keeps the energy alive until the very last second, ensuring that the episode doesn't just end, but lands with a final burst of humor that lingers just enough to make you want to see what she does next. And honestly, knowing Lucy, it's probably going to be another beautiful mess.